Okay. Are we going to yours now, Maui?
Yeah. This has been what's been driving the news cycle for the last 48 hours or whatever. It's been 36 hours. I don't even know.
Do you ever get
Yeah.
that feeling, Maui, that I've had in my career, where all the plebs tell you, like, hey, be more humble, you're just a fucking nobody. And then it's like, mate, I'm sick of waking up as the main character. You know what I mean? Like we can't just even do tweets and have opinions, but we just wake up and the whole thing's like, everyone examine his whole life. Like, you're in that cycle now, Maui. Welcome to that
I was
stage
actually
of your
hoping
career.
we discussed that so much.
Yeah. Okay. So obviously in CS2 news, looked at the latest Spirit. I assume it's a vlog of Holly, and I'll just say first off what was said in the tweet, that in quotes Holly said that Maui Snake doesn't know much about CS, but he speaks well. And so I just quote tweeted it. I said, at least I got that going for me, choosing to look at the positive thing he said at the end of the statement, as opposed to acknowledging the first part about knowing much about CS. I'm going to address this in a couple different ways because I think it should be. I think there's multiple facets to this. One is, and we got a podcast, so we can talk about it for as much as we want to. And that's why I'm using this platform to do that. First of all, I will actually talk back on the knowing about CS stuff. I feel like it's obviously, I know that different analysts bring different skill sets to the table, and obviously the entertainment side of things is where I'll just even say it, and this might come across as egotistical, doesn't matter to me. I've come across at this point as objectively able to convey storylines, provide entertainment consistently enough that tournament organizers across the world consider hiring me, or do hire me on a regular enough basis, that it is clearly my living to entertain people on the desk side of things. At the end of the day, desk is supposed to be about entertainment, because when you're filling for 9 minutes between map 1 and map 2, you're trying to tell a story, but you're also trying to just give people a reason to keep watching the broadcast. Obviously, I have given people a reason to keep watching the broadcast. So factually succeeded at one of the roles in it. Secondary role in being an analyst to me is trying to enhance the viewing experience of the game at hand. Frequently before a game goes live, I try to give notes on who to look out for, why you should look out for them, certain strategies to be aware of as we're going into a matchup, and even breaking down some of those strategies in the post game of what we just witnessed. So maybe it's not in as much detail as Holly and Spirit would go with Chopper on like breaking down who is supposed to do what is the pathing. But you know what Spirit is doing in those sessions? They are dedicating 30 minutes to breaking down a strategy. I have 9 minutes in a desk segment that is shared with two other people, oftentimes with an interviewer and interviewee, and maybe even side content. So in reality, the amount of time that we have to talk on those desk segments more so totals about 2 minutes and 45 seconds, if I'm being even sometimes generous to myself. So conveying deep knowledge regarding strategies is not really what we do on the desk. It's not really even possible to do it on the desk unless you want to commandeer the desk entirely and make the entire desk segment about a strategy breakdown, which in my opinion, I know Richard has different opinions on this. I thought the Mahone Zone was great because it's just like, let's look at a strat or a player or any kind of setup dedicated for a minute and a half, get super nerdy about it. What I say on the desk and what I say on podcast is not the 100% bottom of the iceberg of what I know about CS. Like I think, and I know that especially in the Russian community, they are not still fond of me. Okay, my YouTube editor is Russian based and Russian speaking, and he translated everything that happened in that vlog for me so that I have a more accurate understanding of the context of everything that was said. And that's kind of the second part of this. I know that was like a clickbait headline by CS2 News. Like that was basically clickbait because the vlog that actually happened, and this is just me giving people more context for what's actually going on those kinds of vlogs, is that the guys that are running the Spirit vlog stuff sometimes just ask stupid questions and then they get dumb answers. So the question that they asked Holly was, the interviewer said, when analyst Maui Snake is saying that you as a coach became worse and dropped out of his top 3, do moments like that ruin you, meaning his mental state? It's not really a great question first of all, to be engaging with if you're Holly. If I'm Holly, like, I can't even imagine. Like, Blade has been someone that has publicly given me respect, especially like multiple times, and also like even at the end of HLTV confirmed, he actually shouted out Thorin and myself for the work that we do in this space. And Holly has this very small glimpse of who I am because it's been characterized in a very poor way when on another Snake and Banter, I said the conditional statement, if Holly is responsible for Kyosuke going to Falcons, then I will be forced to rate Holly lower. It was a conditional statement, but Russian media took that statement and they thought that I'm saying Kyosuke's leaving, Holly's a bad coach. That's not how I framed it. That is just because you took a small chunk of what I said out of context and decided to take it in the most grating, conflicting way as possible. I still rate Holly very highly as a coach. I don't take his words personally because, as I've been told by my editor, Jigsaw, he clarified to me that it was more like the question is just bait. Like, the question is bait. And Holly's real statement went more like this. It was that most of all analysts don't know what they're talking about, both Russian speaking and English speaking ones. And what he said when he said he doesn't, I don't know much about CS, but I speak well, in context of like Russian speaking, he said that more so means like you're well spoken. So he actually acknowledges that I'm well spoken, but I don't know as much about CS as like professional players and coaches. And I will still say, even after all that, I don't claim to know as much as the coaches do about all the intricacies of the strats. I don't claim to know, like, I don't have an encyclopedic knowledge of every single smoke thrown at all the time. I do go in the demos. I do still play at a decently high level. I played at a decently high level. I don't even usually push that. Like, I usually try to just make it so that my broadcast work speaks for itself before I have to like pull out the credentials, because I understand that what I accomplished in Counter-Strike as a player was never even anything remotely close, but it's still one of those kind of arguments where I already know, like, the semi-pro career I had is still better than like 99.999% of people that have ever touched Counter-Strike. Like, and it's not even really close either. Like, so I don't want to rely on that, because it's like my distance from like once you get in the professional space is like the dead bottom. Like, people would call it tier 3 practically. So I don't want to ever like really have to go apples to like it's a bad comparison in terms of pitting me against Donk. Like, yeah, like it's just astronomical, the difference I was ever at versus him, and I willingly will admit that. So yeah, I just think the entire issue was really kind of blew out of proportion in a couple different ways. Most of all, I actually found it kind of refreshing that some of the Reddit comments were pretty positive about it. I'll make my own YouTube video on the entire topic, but I think that it's kind of ugly just because CS2 News, who I've actually heard as an entity, has switched ownership in terms of like, it was like one guy that was pretty tapped into the Russian space was running it at first, and then some people bought that from him, and now they just run it, and that's why they released like a blackface Donk Photoshop on their Telegram. You know, it's just like, I don't know if you saw that on Twitter, but like, yeah, that
was one of those examples of Eastern European humor not understanding what a modern American cultural norms are. Just
no, hold on. There isn't such humor in Bulgarian Counter-Strike. That's not an Eastern European thing. This is a completely Russian thing. I'm letting those guys have it.
Either way.
You don't see that in Serbia and Romania and Bulgaria.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that account went from like being kind of like a good filter for finding kind of like cool little bits and pieces from telegrams, to then now they're like almost trying to like make it rage baity, but whatever. That's the internet. That's the internet, you know.
Right. You know what? Actually, interestingly enough, I don't think that's an ugly point. I think it's actually a good thing for you. I think at least I had a lot of fun seeing that on social media. And there's a couple aspects to it. I think the ugly point is, as you pointed out, the fact that there is a media that has a massive following that will misguide a lot of people that are following the community. But if anything, I think it's always been difficult to establish a good connection between broadcast talent and coaches and players, in terms of both of them recognizing that their jobs are different. And for example, when a coach comes out and says a broadcast talent doesn't know shit about the game, well, yeah, his job is not to study your team 24/7, which is your job, right? It's different things. So again, as you pointed out, when I read what Hally said, and first of all, I didn't trust the translation provided by CS2 News either. So when I saw, but he knows how to speak well, it was like, okay, so he either says that you're really convincing when you're talking when you're saying whatever you're saying, or that you're well spoken and you're sometimes making some good points, but you don't know the game in detail. I think that's completely fine. Like if a coach or an analyst comes out and says you don't know the game in detail, let's remember the details for them mean a completely different thing that the details mean to normal people that watch the game, even if those normal people are pundits and broadcast talent, right? Again, anyone that's played Counter-Strike to an even semi-pro level knows how massive the jump is between even semi-pro and the higher level. So the jump between a broadcast talent and the amount of information and intel that you need to have on, let's say, someone like me who's working tier 2 Counter-Strike primarily, like 30, 40, 50 teams. Of course, I'm not going to know all the details about team spirit or about a lot of the teams. Like sometimes you might have deep knowledge on a team if you've worked let's say 5 events in a row where that team plays and you've prepared really well. But I think it's just in general, just a fun thing. I had fun seeing how people react to it on social media, but yeah, I'm pretty sure that Hally recognizes that. I'm pretty sure that he understands, and as you pointed out, it's just a weird setup with the question that they've asked him. Like, what are you expected to say? It's like someone coming to you and being like, well, Ted said that you're very bad at, I don't know, Tetris. What do you think? And you're a professional Tetris player, and you're going to be like, well, screw this guy. Of course, if he said that, I don't like him. So it's just the question that sets it up for a negative reaction. But the topic of how much broadcast talent know about Counter-Strike, I think, is a really interesting one. But it's not really an ugly topic.
I mean, what I think's just whack about this is, like, first of all, it's even the phrasing. Again, that's why I wonder about the translation. It's a very different statement to say this analyst doesn't know private things about our team and how we operate, and say, you know, nothing about the game, which is like a fan way of saying it. Remember, everyone knows the classic refrain of the dimwit on HLTV. It's not like, oh, wow, this person who I used to respect and enjoy, I don't like a recent statement. No, they always say, I've lost all respect. And it's like, what, every time, all respect? It's every single time you don't like one thing, respect goes to zero, does it? So essentially at that point, you're as bad as a murderer. Fucking give me a break. Like, you know, already that feels like this is the coach equivalent of that. It's not just like, hey, listen, analysts don't know the particulars about our team, so they might be wrong. No, it's like, you don't really know anything about this game, do you? Because, by the way, I'll tell you what's really fucked up about that. That's not even just like a diss. You're essentially saying Maui's like developmentally incapable of ever understanding a video game. Like, by your logic, no matter how many hours he puts in. By the way, he literally went to Columbia University, you fucking dunce. Guy who just looked into a monitor and got CRT fucking electrons into his eyes all day. And then because someone went, Harosh, you think that means you're a fucking genius about the game. No, all we know that you know at the moment, bro, is about Spirit. That's it. We don't know that you know anything about any other team. In fact, I'd even say, as I did say on Twitter, we don't even really know how much you know, bro, because you have one of the craziest auto-win conditions to ever play Counter-Strike, literally in your team, where you have made your entire name off. And by the way, for every dickhead fan who tries to be a mini Thorin and goes, anyone can look it up, you don't look it up, cocksucker. Because I saw you all tell me on Reddit that Hally already took Spirit to the semis without Donk. He was banned from that major, you dickhead. He did not attend that major, and he did not coach them to the semi-finals because it was impossible. He wasn't at that major. So no, he didn't do that. And by the way, you'd have picked the wrong tournament, dickhead. That was all Dexter. Did not see that one? That was the one where he hard carried the fuck out of that one. So anyway, to bring it all the way back, I also agree. When you dig into it, it doesn't even seem like he was actually going that hard. Like, in fact, in general, this has happened now with Spirit a bunch of times. It's the same thing with Magix. Magix was joking half the times he ever commented on me and Maui and people like that. He was being sardonic. He was even doing it, if you watched on camera, with almost like a wink to the camera. Where, like, you could tell by his, like, the way he was speaking, he wasn't, like, actually saying, like, by the way, people like Overdrive might that, well, you know, we know nothing, or we're fucking idiots or whatever. That's more other people's style. So I already think people are missing that one. Then there's the whole thing of, like, there's a few different angles to this. First of all, even if Hally had said this to be salty, it is, assuming this is like some documentary or vlog footage, so it's basically something within the team, largely for the team and their supporters. It's also a fine statement to make, by the way. I think it's a pretty classic tactic. If anyone's ever seen an NFL locker room, one of the most classic tactics you use for your team goes like this: us versus them. They don't understand us. They think this and that about us. They don't know what we're really like in practice and who we are, you know, what we're made of, and we're going to show them and prove them wrong. That's a classic tactic. That's actually quite a good framing technique as a coach, to essentially say, don't worry about anyone outside of this room. Everyone inside this room knows more than them. Like, that's just a classic thing to say. So I also think the setting here is, notice, it wasn't Hally tweets. I don't think it has a Twitter account, by the way. Hally tweets, Maui Snake, at Maui Snake, you know nothing about the game, but you speak well. That would be a very different statement to make, in my opinion, because of the audience you intend it for. And then I'd just say this, because I've had this happen to myself many, many times. In fact, the joke would be, I've even had it happen with people like Legia, who years later became friends of mine and wanted to do shows literally talking about the motherfucking game, but it just took them a while to get like beyond the personality and the persona, and that's what was triggering them. And one thing I can tell you, I'll give any coach out there who agrees, like, oh, every analyst doesn't know what they're bloody talking about, I'll give you a bit of food for thought. Don't you think I do a really good job on these shows of always giving you guys the benefit of the doubt when you get one of those dodgy timeouts recorded on the broadcast? You know, a Zonic or a Taz one where it seems like you said nothing and your players look frustrated at you and everyone reads into it. They go, ooh, he's not a good coach. Look, where was all the insight? And I always say, guys, this is like a clip from a fucking timeout. Like, we can't know what he said before the game in the hotel room. We can't know what he says in scrims, in reviews. That's actually a tiny fraction of his coaching job. But fans do judge them super harsh on those times, and I think that's unfair. So in the same sense, I agree with Maui. What, you're going to take his 45 seconds talking about your team on a desk and then act like that means he knows nothing? Bro, that's a disingenuous point to even make. You'd have to go and watch like a piece of content on his channel where he has half an hour to talk about it. Or here's a crazy idea. You could have a conversation with him. You could actually go back and forth with him, either privately or publicly, in a DM or at an event. You could just basically try and grill him, ask him some questions. If people don't know, that's one of the reasons back in the day how I became like friends with Kassad, for example. It wasn't because of something I said on a desk. It would be that if he ever talked to me, like, you know, behind the game while you're watching some of the team, if he asked me questions, he would always be surprised. Like, oh, you actually do know more than you think on the desk. And I would say to him, my role on the desk, bro, isn't trying to be some brainiac who impresses coaches. I'm there to entertain the people watching the fucking show. And by the way, my profile was never even, I'm a nerd watching the demos. I'm already letting Yanko and back in the day Maniac do that job. So why would I step on their feet just to try and show, hey, I know something too, guy? No, my role on the broadcast was never that. So I think the whole thing's ridiculous. And also, it shows that people misunderstand what knowledge means. I've always said this.
Yeah.
People have this weird linear notion that knowledge is a book of couch. You start at chapter 1 and you have to get chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 all nailed before you can get to chapter 6. That's not the way any knowledge field works. Every field is this giant area where you specialize or you're a generalist. And the whole point of Maui's job literally is to be a generalist, to be able to talk about any team they throw at him, anyone in the top 40, any matchup, right? To do that by definition means you could never be as much of an expert about Spirit as Hally is. Literally the guy whose whole job is to think about Spirit all day long. And so I would just say this. First of all, we're trying to be more generalist anyway and be able to talk about all of them. Then also, there's the whole angle that, like, a big thing that an analyst is doing also is giving you a coherent perspective. One of the interesting things about a point Maui makes is that he didn't just come out of a vacuum. You will know what he said on past broadcasts. You know who he hyped up. You know who he thinks is overrated. You know what he thinks was a good signing, what's bad. So actually, some of what we want to hear from him on a desk is just updates to that. It's like, right, how did this change? Was that the right move? Is this team coming together? Do you think that was the right role that they set up there? Essentially, we want to know Maui's model and perspective of the world. It's not just, they're acting like this is some science and there's like an actual number that Maui got wrong on the test, and that if we look at his working out, it'll prove he's an idiot. Like, there's no number to fucking art, you idiots. It's not even a science. It is literally an art to even pretend we are talking tactically about the game in a 30-second segment. Like, what are we even going to talk about there? So I think that's another. And then lastly, I'll just bring this up. This whole reason you saw this, guys, wasn't that it was just a tweet. It's that there's so many people on Reddit who were so horny to hate on Maui that this was just a classic example for them all to come out the woodwork. And here's why I can tell you those people are all dishonest as fuck. Because do you know what, Ted? Years ago, you might remember it was in May the 12th or something, 2022, I did a famous tweet about Fallen being overrated, and everyone slammed me. Every clout chaser, every famous person, by the way, came out. Now, when Simple basically told me to shut the fuck up, everyone said, well, He's the GOAT. I think he'd know better than you. But you know what's interesting, Ted? If I was to tell you I have a literal recording that Simple sent me of him in a private voice note saying actually he apologises for all that and that I do know a lot, and in fact he's always respected me, and he even has Blade like translate my tweets for him so he gets what I'm saying. If I said that, every fan would go, well, so what does that mean? Well, which is it, dickhead? Does him saying something make it true or does it not? Because there's one thing, I agree with you, Maui. The obvious comeback here, if someone's a little shitheel and then they're like, oh, Hally says you know nothing. Well, Blade said I do, so sit on that and swivel, you little twat. Which one of them's one more? Exactly, I'll take the Blade opinion there. It's not really what we think, but again, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, as we say in English. So if you're going to play that game, we could play that game too, you know.
Yeah. Also, I think players and coaches, and I understand that because obviously they're competitors, and to them the way that their team plays and the way that people describe them, it's kind of like they always take it personal, right? So a lot of them could be really rapid in the way that they react to
even though they're wrong, they think that if, like, I'll give you an example. You know the segment we did about Jacob, where we just said things like, look, he's maybe not good enough for FaZe, or is he the right replacement for Raid? They will take that, and then if a fan goes, fuck Jacob, he's a piece of shit, they think we made the fan say that, you know what I mean? Like, which is like, no, we had no connection to that statement. So I know what you mean. They think what we say is why they get the fan response to do. I think that's real.
Exactly. And also they take it personally, and at the same time, it is our job. Like, you can play the card and say, well, my job is to play, your job is to commentate on what I do, so you shut the fuck up. And I'm like, well, technically no, because it's still my job to talk about it. Absolutely. And also I think actually conversations like these and arguments like these, and I completely agree with you, I feel like the opportunity for a coach or anyone that thinks broadcast talent don't know what the hell they're on about, just go and talk to them at events. I haven't seen, up to this date, I've never been in a position where a player comes to me at a LAN event and they want to talk about something and I tell them, no, man, I don't want to talk to you. Every single time I'm down for it. And I feel like it's nice because Counter-Strike is very subjective. And this is something that I've learned over the years, because I haven't played professionally, but I have played an obscene amount of the game. And I have played with a lot of the Bulgarian players, which I'm not going to go into detail with because we know about the reputation. But the one thing that I've learned about, or that those years have taught me, is the fact that Counter-Strike is a subjective game. The moment that you get some level of base, that shows you that someone knows the game, but your specific knowledge on a certain team or a certain meta doesn't really reflect on the fact that you know or you don't know Counter-Strike. Like, I can be a complete noob, but I can know 50 executes that tier 1 teams are doing right now in the last 2 months by heart. But then in the same time, someone that is a legend of the game and has a really good base knowledge of how Counter-Strike works and what are the things needed for a team to succeed and what are the proper reactions and how communication works, could be outside of meta. I could know a lot more nades than him. He could come and he still knows Counter-Strike more than me. So it is very subjective when you say someone knows or they don't know Counter-Strike. You need to really, you need to contextualize when you're making a statement like this. But yeah, I do think it is entertaining to have those conversations. Imagine one day we have a desk at, I don't know, some kind of an event like a PGL or whatever, and then Maui's at the desk and Hally comes, and then they just have a back and forth. They made them debate between who knows more about Counter-Strike. I'd watch that.
Sure.
See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, you know, be a pleb and don't.